Now, your News 8 forecast first.
Nice to have a mild night for a change, right? 61 up there in Webster, Penfield. You're doing all right, too. Down in the south, same story here. No real cool air tonight anywhere. Nice, comfortable evening. Clouds on the increase, as is the wind. But that makes perfect sense. There's a cold front coming, and those are the signs of that front approaching. So there it is, just west of Chicago. This guy will move east tomorrow and produce some rain and even a few thunderstorms potentially tomorrow during the afternoon. I don't expect anything severe because I don't expect a lot of sun early in the day, but we will get into the mid-60s, and again, late afternoon and mid-afternoon showers and a rumble of thunder. We are not done with the 70s. We got more warm days ahead here on News 8 at 11, which starts right now.
From WROC in Rochester, this is News 8 at 11 in high definition.
Tonight, the nation responds to another terror attack. 3 people are dead and more than 100 hurt in 2 bomb blasts at the Boston Marathon.
It knocked me to the ground, and then, everybody started running.
Dozens of Rochester runners were there and tell News 8 it was pure chaos.
A lot of us continued to run because we didn't really know what to do. And so we just continued on.
The president is promising swift action.
We will find out who did this, and we will hold them accountable.
Hours after the blast, every federal agency is on the case to find out who bombed Boston and why.
And good evening, everyone. Kevin is off tonight. This was Patriots Day in Boston, but it was marred by a senseless act of violence. Tonight, police are calling it an act of terrorism. We have team coverage, including the dramatic account from Rochester residents in Boston. But first, the investigation. Here's Vanita Nair in Boston.
The first bomb went off just before 3 p.m. near the finish line of the Boston Marathon, sending smoke into the air and runners and spectators to the ground. Then a second explosion went off 2 blocks away. Medical personnel stationed at the finish line to care for fatigued runners became battlefield medics. The injured, some missing limbs, were placed into wheelchairs and rushed to waiting ambulances. Witnesses were stunned.
It sounded like something horrible, and everyone just stopped and looked around and just had this horrible feeling.
Authorities are also searching the entire marathon route for clues.
We are stabilizing the situation at this point in time, but people should be cautious.
After the explosion, cell phone service in these surrounding areas was completely shut down to prevent any possible remote explosive detonations, but they are still unclear how the bombs were set off. President Obama promised federal help for victims and their families.
We will find out who did this. We'll find out why they did this. Any responsible individuals, any responsible groups will feel the full weight of justice.
Sources tell CBS News that a man is being detained and police are questioning him, but he is not being called a suspect. Investigators are also looking at surveillance tapes and other images of the scene before and after the explosions to try to piece together what happened and who might be responsible. Vanita Nair, CBS News, Boston.
Our team coverage continues. 47 people from the Rochester area were registered to run in the marathon. As far as we can tell, they are all safe tonight. And Vanessa Herring joins us. Vanessa, you talked with 2 runners who were less than a mile away from the finish line when all of this occurred. Amazing.
Yeah, and they were really shocked. They never thought it would happen. Marie Boudreau Ninkoff is from Brighton. She was running in the marathon with her friend Amy Limbo of Webster. Marie told me she was at mile 25 when she fell. Another runner helped her up, but listen to what she says happened next.
So we were running together, and I heard 2 bangs, and I thought it was lightning. And I said to him, "Is it lightning? Is it or thunder and lightning or whatever?" And he said he thought it was, and then they stopped us. And we couldn't go.
Marie's friend Amy says the scene was chaotic.
I could hear sirens, and I turned around, and police cars and ambulances were just coming right down the course, and they were, trying to get people off the course. And I happened to be running right by a police officer at the time, and he looked at me and he said that there was an explosion at the finish line.
That explosion killed 3 people and injured more than 100. Here in Rochester, Marie and Amy's friend Lori Sosa hopped on live, desperate to find out if the women and the other runners from our area were okay.
Marie, I knew that she was stopped. Anyone who was slower than that time was behind her, and there's really no one slower than that time.
Lori is a marathon runner. Using her friend Marie's time, she figured out the 47 runners from Rochester weren't near the finish line when the bombs went off.
So I looked at her time, and I knew anyone who was coming in slower than her would be safe because they were behind her, and there wasn't anyone from Rochester. There were 46 registered runners, 47, and everyone who was ahead of her had either finished or they were behind her. So I was relatively confident that the Rochester runners were safe.
I'm glad everybody from Rochester is fine, and and praying for the people that were hurt.
Marie and Amy told me they had planned to stay in Boston until tomorrow, but after today's tragic events, they were considering coming home tonight.
Oh, that is completely understandable. It's something to be grateful for anytime you know that a lot of Rochesterians are in the line of danger. They're
at
safe
least they're
tonight.
safe, yes.
Right. Vanessa Herring, thank you. The general manager of a local store that sells running shoes and gear spent much of the day trying to get in touch with runners from Rochester. Mort Nance runs the MedBed store in Pittsford and says when he first heard about the explosions, he was immediately concerned for the people he knew were there.
Seeing the time clock of the race, knowing how there were a lot of runners would be crossing the finish line at that point, just over 4 hours. So the potential for injury seems pretty high, and as well as a lot of spectators in the area that looked like they may have taken the worst of it.
Meanwhile, Rochester City Hall said tonight local emergency crews are operating on heightened alert, and the same is true for cities across the country, not to mention the state. Mayor Tom Richards also issued a statement offering his condolences to the victims of the attack. Coverage of this story continues overnight and into tomorrow. Look for the latest on CBS Up to the Minute, the CBS Morning News, right here on News 8 at sunrise and at 7 a.m. on CBS This Morning. We also invite you to share your thoughts with us about all of this. We've got a special section of our News 8 Facebook page devoted to this story. Many of you have already left your comments. And you can keep up with this story on our website. Go to rochesterhomepage.net and click on the News tab. The sacrifices made by West Webster firefighters Lieutenant Mike Ciparini and Tomas Kachuvka will never be forgotten. A sign unveiled today now serves as a permanent reminder of their heroic efforts on Christmas Eve morning when the two were shot in the line of duty. Amy Young was there.
They followed your example, for you stated no greater love as any man than this, and that he would lay down his life for his friend.
Hundreds stood along the lake shore as Lieutenant Mike Ciparini's son Nick unveiled a sign dedicated to the heroic acts of his father and Tomas Kachuvka.
Today we're here to honor two of our fallen heroes, Mike and Tomas. We will never forget what happened to them in the morning that it occurred.
Those who knew and loved the fallen heroes and even strangers stopped to pay tribute.
The events of December 24, 2012 have left all of us with an absence we cannot fill. The lives of the family, friends, and community have been forever transformed.
Injured firefighters Joseph Hofstetter and Ted Scardino also looked on, remembering and reflecting.
It's important for you to know that standing behind this event and all our events that our organization does are a lot of dedicated, non-paid volunteers with a pure focus to make sure that fallen are never forgotten.
Now travelers along this road will reflect too on two lives lost to a senseless act. Amy Young, News 8.
Right next to the signs, it's a memorial started by the Seabreeze Volunteer Fire Department that was set up shortly after the tragedy, and that memorial continues to grow. Meantime, the woman accused of buying the guns that were used in the West Webster ambush was arraigned today. Dawn Nguyen pleaded not guilty to charges of falsifying business records to purchase the guns. Prosecutors say she bought them for gunman William Spengler, convicted killer who was not allowed to own firearms. West Webster firefighters say they want to make sure justice is served.
It's a tough day for all of us. Like I say, we're here to support each other, and we're going to continue to do so until this entire thing is brought to a conclusion.
Yeah, it's hard to see her, but as Tom said, we just want to make sure justice is done, and we're going to be here every step of the way.
Nguyen is due back in court May 13th. To gun control now, a few key provisions of the New York SAFE Act went into effect today. Starting today, the maximum capacity for a detachable magazine is 7 rounds. It used to be 10 rounds. You can still buy a 10-round clip in New York State, but you can't fill it up. Also, people who own assault weapons must now register their guns. The assault weapons registration form will be posted on the state police website. Registration must be completed before April 15th of next year. If you have any questions about the SAFE Act, New York State has set up a hotline. The number is 1-855-LAW-GUNS. Did you file your taxes yet? If not, you may want to file an extension and fast, or you can face some serious fines from Uncle Sam. Locally, hundreds have already filed 6-month automatic extensions to allow additional time to get in the needed paperwork and the forms. But even if you get an extension, you should note that you still have to pay. By the way, many post offices are open late tonight to accommodate last-minute filers. There's about 45 minutes left. Kodak has a tentative buyer for its document imaging business, one of 2 businesses Kodak needs to sell to emerge from bankruptcy. Japanese company Brother Industries, which is known for its line of printers, scanners, and sewing machines, says it will pay approximately $210 million for the business. Document imaging includes scanners, capture software, and services. The deal will help Kodak with its reorganization.
The sale provides 2 things to Kodak. One, of course, it meets that condition so they can get their loan, but it also provides Kodak with much needed cash, more than $200 million, that they can use to pay off their British pension liabilities. And that's the 3rd condition that they have to meet before they can get that loan and emerge from bankruptcy.
Brother Industries would also take on a $67 million liability for prepaid customer contracts. Other possible buyers could come forward. Kodak does want to get final court approval by June. Coming up on News 8, the man facing 335 counts of child sex abuse takes the stand in his Ontario County trial. We'll take you there. And in sports, a masterful finish at Augusta draws big ratings for CBS. John Kutchko's got the numbers.
Yeah, I got some numbers for you, too, and I think you're going to like them. Today's almanac, 73 degrees. Not a record, but who cares? Nice day today. Can we get some more of them? You may be surprised by my answer next.
You're watching the team you can trust. Kevin Doran, Maureen McGuire, Rochester's most accurate forecast with Chief Meteorologist Scott Hetzko and Sports Director John Kutchko. This is News 8 at 11 in high definition.